Yeah, thank you. If you write an exchange rate in this format, what does it mean? It means if I want to exchange for 1 Japanese yen, how much US dollar I have to up, right? So the example here is like a US exchange rate with Japan is called as US dollar per yen. So we use this as a representation, right? So which country you are in and which country is the home country, it's a very important thing that you have to decide when you talk about the exchange rate. So for example, the second example here, Denmark's exchange rate with the euro, okay, European Union, Eurozone, they have the common currency. It's quoted as Danish krone per euro. So what does it mean? How many Danish krone you have to pay in exchange for $1 of the euro? Okay, so in the first example, the home country is US and the foreign country is Japan. The second example, the home country is Denmark, and you would like to know the exchange rate between the Denmark krone to the euro. Okay, okay, so um, this is just the table that shows you the bilateral exchange rate between a country or between the economic identities, right? So Canada loonies, what's the exchange rate of the Canada loonies to the dollars? It's here. So what does it mean? $1 could buy 1.5 Canada dollar. Some people call it loonie. Okay, so the second column, now the other currency we are looking, it's not the dollar anymore. The foreign country right now it's UK, and their currency is called pounds, right? So what's the number here? 1.398 means 1 pounds is equal to 1.3989 of the Canada dollars. Oh, sorry, this is euro. Sorry, this is not pound. Sorry, this is euro. This is UK. So, okay, let me one more time. So, Canada's dollar right now, if you compare with the US dollar, that's equal to 1.5, right? If you compare to the Europe, right? You're talking about the foreign countries, Europe, €1 could exchange for 1.389 Canada dollar. By the token, now if the foreign country, it's not euro, it's not US, it's the UK. So the foreign country's dollar right now is the British pound. British pound. One British pound could exchange for 2.047 Canada dollar. That's how to interpret this table, right? So maybe you could treat like here. You could treat like this. So the first column, the horizontal axis here, you could treat it as a home country. And what is the counterpart, or the other country that you are looking right now, based on which currency they use, right? For example, if you're using the dollar as a benchmark, that means the foreign country is US. If you're using the euro, that means the foreign country is Europe or Eurozone. If you're using pounds, that means foreign country you are looking at, it's the UK. Okay? One more thing. This table tells you that the information in two timing. One, it's in 2015. And one, it's in 2014. So as you can see, the exchange rate, it's not a fixed number. It will fluctuate across the time. And it's determined by the foreign exchange rate market, which is the focus of the today. Okay? And then this table also tells you in the end here, if we just reverse the home country and the foreign country, the exchange rate between them are just the reciprocal. Let's take a look at the example here. So in 2015, the exchange rate for US dollar per euro is equal to 1.086. So this means what? This means if you want to buy, if you want to buy $1 of the euro, you need to pay 1.086 dollar. Right? So the home country right now, okay, yeah, good. Good to know, yeah, good to know. Yeah. Home country right now, you're looking at US. And foreign country you're looking right now is the Eurozone. Right. So how much your domestic money you have to pay in exchange for 1 unit of the foreign currency? That is basically the idea here. So if you put yourself in the US, your home country, it's US, right? So your home country is US. This one slash euro dollar, right? So this represent home country, this represent foreign country. Okay? But if right now, instead of you are living in the US, you are actually located in the Germany. Okay? So now you switch your home country and foreign country. Okay? So now if I using another way to represent this two currencies relationship, if now the home country became one of the European country, say Germany. Say that you are a German and you want to buy some of the foreign currency, and this foreign currency is a US dollar. Okay, so now the exchange rate you are looking at is supposed to be look like this, right? So once again, the subscript, the first subscript is the domestic currency. The second subscript is the foreign currency that you are trying to exchange for. Okay, so how do we find this information in the graph? So say that you are German. There's no German here. So yeah, so Eurozone is here, right? So home country is here. You are a German. You are looking for exchange for the $1 of the US dollar, right? So this is the amount of the euro you have to pay out at a bank or at a foreign exchange market. So that's equal to 0.921. Okay? And as you can imagine, those two are just the reciprocal of each other, right? Think about that. If you exchange, okay, so now if you exchange, suppose you are in the beginning, you are in the US, you exchange the US dollar to the euro. Firstly, so then you travel to Europe. Then, if you didn't spend any money, you you try to get rid of your euro before you came back to the US. So you go to the bank in Germany again to exchange your holding of the euro back to the US dollar. So what will happen? The price suppose not change because you didn't spend any money, right? So the exchange rate for this two, if we just flip the country and the foreign country, the product of those two exchange rates is supposed to equal to 1. Does this make sense? Like, think about the story of the traveling. Okay. All right. So that's the reason. That's the reason why this two are actually reciprocal, right? Reciprocal with each other. Okay. Okay. So you could figure out question number 2 in the homework by using the same idea. Okay. And then we talk about appreciation and depreciation. Okay. And here it's a little bit confusing because using our convention in the international economics, how much domestic currency you have to give up in exchange for a foreign 1 unit of the foreign currency, right? Appreciation will make this term actually decrease. If you think right now the home country is US, the foreign country is Eurozone. Okay, so the exchange rate, once again, what does it mean? It means how much dollar you have to pay in exchange for 1 unit of the foreign currency, which is euro here, right? So think about that. If 1 euro costs less US dollar, so what does it mean? Now you pay less US dollar in exchange for the same unit, which is 1 unit of the euro. So what does it mean? That means US appreciate, thank you. US dollar appreciate, right? If you want to use the full sentence to describe it, you should use US dollar appreciate against euro, right? And this statement is identical to Europe, okay, the euro, the currency they use in the eurozone, euro depreciate against the US dollar. Okay, so the value of this exchange rate, the conventional one we usually use, right? Because the textbook is written in the US. Usually we put US as a home country. The value of this exchange rate decrease actually represent the appreciation of the US dollar. Okay? Let me just move on to the flip side, and you could try it by yourself or take it as an exercise. If right now, instead of this value going down, this value right now goes up, what does it mean? It means I have to pay more US dollar to exchange for the same unit of the euro, right? So I have to pay more. Okay, people have to pay more. One has to pay more. More what? One has to pay more US dollar, right? One have to pay more US dollar in exchange for same amount of the euro, right? So it's 1 unit of the euro. Okay, so what does it mean? It means the value of the US dollar actually drops, right? Because you need to have more dollar in exchange for the same amount of the foreign currency, right? So if we're using this way to represent the exchange rate between the US dollar to the euro, if this number increase, actually means the cost for exchanging 1 unit of the euro is increased. And that means the US dollar depreciate against the euro. And this statement is identical to the euro appreciate against the US dollar. Is this clear? Okay, good, thank you. Okay, so I don't want to repeat one more time, right? So this is just a numerical example. Should I go over one more time? So the key point is to calculate out. Okay, yes, okay. Will not be against it. Okay. Okay, let me pull up the whiteboard. I think that will be easier for me to write. Okay, so if you could download it, you could download it on your computer, and then I just pull down the slides right now, and then that's using the whiteboard to explain. Okay. So as we said, the exchange rate it's a floating term, right? So it will change over the time. In 2014, this question tells you the dollar value of the euro was the dollar value of the euro was 1.211. Okay, and in the textbook, in the slides, it is represented as right. So let's stare at this representation longer. Okay, so once again, now who is our home country? It's the US. And we are trading with euro. What is the time? 2014. So how do you interpret this one in plain words? In 2014, one needs to pay 1.211 US dollar to exchange for 1 unit of euro, right? Okay, and then we're just using another data point that is in 2015. Okay, so in 2015, the exchange rate between US and euro, it's no longer 1.211. Now it's 1.086. So we need to calculate the change rate of this exchange rate, right? Change rate of the exchange rate. So whenever there's a change rate, how do we do so? Right, we calculate change rate. Usually we have a new data, right? Minus old data divided by the old data times 100%. And this is exactly the formula that we are going to use right now. Okay, so we try to find out what's the exchange rate change in percentage. Okay, and what is this one? The delta, okay, the delta is new minus old, right? So the change, and that's equal to exchange rate between the US and Eurozone in 2015 minus the exchange rate in 2014. And this is equal to right? So if you do the algebra, this is equal to minus 0.125. So this is the change in level. Right? So we need to divide this one, the change, by the original term, the original value. That's equal to what? That's equal to the exchange rate in 2014. All right, so just plug in the number. This one is the one we just calculate out. Divided by the old one, original one, that's 1.122. Oh, sorry, 1.211 times 100%. So that you will get this number, it's equal or very close to this. Okay, so now we know the change rate of the exchange rate is equal to this. Okay, and then by the concept we just went over, the minus sign means appreciation. Right, so how do we interpret this term? Appreciate, sorry, yeah, I don't know why it just cannot show appreciation. Right? So how do we interpret this term? From 2014 to 2015, the US dollar appreciate or depreciate? Appreciate, right? Because negative sign here means appreciate. Remember the example we just used before? That means you pay less of your domestic currency, which is the US dollar here, in exchange for the same amount of the currency, which is 1 unit of the euro, right? So now the amount you have to pay is decreased by 10.32%. So that means the home currency, the US dollar, is appreciated by 10.32%. Is it clear? We have one more example that we can go over together one more time. But this one is more straightforward to you guys because this is using the US as a home country and the euro as a foreign country. So think about it, like which part confuse you, and let me know. Or this is very straightforward, let me know. Okay, so this is the appreciation rate, right, of the US dollar between 2014 and 2015, because the value of the exchange rate moved from here to here, from 1.211 to 1.086, right? We know the number decrease means the value of the currency appreciate. And by what level? Level is here, 0.32%. Okay? Okay? Okay?
Did you say 0.32% or?
No, 10.32.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense then. Thank you.
Yeah, 10, sorry, yeah, but it's 10, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So the next example, it's a little bit counterintuitive because you have to treat the euro as a home country. Okay, So just move on to the next slice. All right. So the next slice, this is slice 9, page 9, and that's page 10. So in 2014, right now, the exchange rate between Europe to the US, not Europe to US, is this. Okay, so now we switch the home country and the foreign country. Now the home country is Europe zone. Foreign country is US. You have to treat yourself as a citizen in one of the European Union country. Okay? And you try to uh, buy some of the foreign currency. And this is the quote that you get. In order to buy 1 unit of the foreign currency, you have to pay 0.826 unit of the domestic currency, which is euro. Right? In 2015, this exchange rate became 0.921. Right? So if we just take a look at those two values, the exchange rate in 2014 and 2015, it's those two values. This, from here to here, the value increase. What does it mean? It means if I am a citizen, I'm a citizen in European Union, right? I'm German. The cost I have to pay in exchange for 1 unit of the dollar is increased, right? I have to pay more to buy the same unit, which is 1 unit of the US dollar increase. So that means, Emily, you are right. So that means the euro depreciate against the US dollar, right? Or it's equivalent to say that US dollar appreciate against the euro. Okay? But we need to know at what level, what's the magnitude of the depreciation. We could only know the direction from viewing those two figures. But what is the magnitude? What is the size of the change? Right? So how do we calculate? We use the new exchange rate minus the original one divided by the original one times 100%. So that we will get this number times 100%. So that it's equal to 11.5%. Okay, so remember that right now, if we take the perspective from the European citizens, right? The citizen in the European Union. Now, the exchange rate change become positive. That means I have to pay more. Like how much more? It's equal to 11.5%. I have to pay 11.5% more than in 2014 to buy the same amount of the US dollar. Okay, so that means euro depreciate by 11.50% against the US dollar. Okay, so this is supposed to be very clear right now. Are we on the same page? Okay. The second topic. Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, so you're supposed to be able to do the homework right now. Okay. And the second topic that we discussed on Monday night is called multilateral exchange rate, right? Instead of using the bilateral one, the one we're just using is called bilateral one. Exchange rate. Now, if we want to calculate multilateral exchange rate, how do we do so? And this is quite easy. The formula is just like the change of, this is also called effective exchange rate, right? So the example will be, for example, this is US and you have multiple trade partner. You have Europe as your major trade partner. You have China, you have Japan. And each of them, their percentage of their trade value, for example, in Europe, maybe it's 50. In China, maybe it's 30. Japan is 20. How do we calculate the effective exchange rate? We're just using the share of the trade value as the weight times the bilateral exchange rate between those two parts, between those two economies, right? And sum up. That's it. So for example, the US effective exchange rate in this case, hey, bear with me, sorry. It's equal to 50% of the exchange rate exchange rate between euro and dollar plus 30% exchange rate, this is Chinese yuan, plus 20% this, right? And the change of the effective exchange rate will be the same thing too. It's equal to the weight average of the change of the bilateral exchange rate. so that you could calculate out the percentage change. What's the magnitude and the direction of the change in the effective exchange rate? So that's the second topic we talk about on Monday night, right? And the third topic we talk about is the floating exchange rate regimes and fixed exchange rate regimes. Oh, can we finish this one? Okay. Uh, um, okay, so um, okay, so I need to assume more thing, right? So uh, if I have the trade share, it's this, and this, right? So say that the US dollar is appreciate against the euro by 10%. And it's depreciate against the Chinese yuan, the renminbi, by 20%. And it's appreciate against the Japanese yen by 10%. So then it's just the calculation, right? So what's the effective exchange rate change? 50% times -10 plus 30% because the trade value between US and China account for 30% of the total trade value of the US times 20 plus the last part, the trade between US and Japan account for 20% of the trade in the US, and the US dollar, it's appreciated by 10% against the Japanese yen. So this will be the change in percentage of the US effective exchange rate. So this will be 0.05 plus 0.06 plus minus 0.02. So that's equal to negative 0.01. That means the US dollar, the effective exchange rate of the US dollar is appreciated by 1%. So is that clear? All you need to do is to figure out the weight average, like weighted average, and what is the weight? The weight is the trade share between the home country to the specific foreign country, right? So in this case, it's the very simple case. I assume that US only have 3 trade partner, which are Eurozone, China, and Japan. But in reality, US probably have multiple, like more than 50 countries as a trade partner. So in order to figure out the change of the effective exchange rate, you have to count each of their weight of the bilateral exchange rate change, right? So you see, so which 3 of them, which one is the most important trade partner with the US in this case? Supposed to be the euro, right? Because it account for 50% of the trade value in the US. So that the exchange rate change between the US dollar and the euro will take a bigger portion if we compare to the other trading partners. I hope this is clear. Okay, so then we discuss the third topic that we discussed on Monday night on this chapter is the different regime, the different government's policy on the control of the foreign exchange market, right? Some of the country they tend to be more like uh, control more on the foreign exchange rate market, so that the exchange rate will be more stable. And some of the countries just let the exchange rate determined by the market by itself. So some of the country you will see like more, it's more volatile of the exchange rate data. And as we know, by the IMF classification, the fixed and float, they are not a dichotomy. So it's not only split into two categories. It's instead of the only two category, the fixed and the float exchange rate regime supposed to be like a two polar on the spectrum, and most of the country are in between. And some country using the manage float system. They will control uh, the volatility of the exchange rate against one of the foreign currency within a band. Right? Once the volatility is surpassed that band, they will stop, or they will stop the market, or they will intervene the market. Okay, so that's the third part of the discussion on Monday night. So we should move to the main topic of today, which is the arbitrage and exploitation. Here. Okay, so exchange rate, okay, over the world, set in a foreign exchange market, right? Sometimes in the literature you will see like forex or FX market that represent the same thing. It's the foreign exchange market. Okay, the foreign market is not an organized exchange. Trades conduct over counter. So each of the country they have the banks, so they can buy and sell the foreign currency and the domestic currency anytime. In in 2013, the global forex market trade is 5.3 trillion per day in currency. So it's a huge market, as you can see. And who is the three major foreign exchange centers? Those are in UK, US, and Japan. And other important centers will be like Hong Kong, Paris, Singapore, Sydney, and Zurich. Okay, so let's take a look of the simplest, the most straightforward exchange rate. So we call the spot exchange rate. So what does it mean? That means the exchange rate happened on the transaction, right? So the simplest forex transaction is the contract for the immediate exchange on the spot, right? For one currency for another between two parties. This is known as a spot contract. So everything we have learned right? In the previous table, it's referred to the spot exchange rate. The one you see is the price that you buy or the price you sell. So the use of the term exchange rate always refer to the spot rate for our purpose, unless otherwise noted. But we will talk about a little bit more today because the exchange rate will float over the time. So if you're using the future exchange rate, that will not call the spot exchange rate. So the spot contract, okay, obviously it's the most common type of a trade, and it accounts for 90%. Okay, and the rest of the contract relating to the foreign exchange market are called derivatives. And the examples that the book shows you have some like 4 different kinds: so forward, swap, and future, and options. So first of all, what is the forwards? So forward basically is just the future exchange rate. So a forward contract different from a spot contract in that the two parties make the contract today, but the settlement date means the date you get your foreign currency and you pay for and the seller of the foreign currency receive your payment for the delivery of the currencies in the future or forward. The time to delivery or maturity varies. However, because the price is fixed as of today, the contract carries no risk. Right? So if the future price, the future exchange rate, it's the same with the today's exchange rate. That means you avoid all of the risk, all of the varieties of the exchange rate. Right? So for example, if you buy 100,000 euro today, by using today's exchange rate, but you are going to get the euro on, say that, September 1st, right? So today is July 22nd, right? So you tell your seller, like you tell your bank, that I'm going to buy 100,000 of the euro today using the spot rate, using today's exchange rate. But I'm gonna get this amount of the dollar on September 1st. So this is called forward. Okay? The second derivative is called swap. A swap contract combines a spot sale of foreign currency with a forward repurchase of the same currency. This is a common contract for counterparties dealing in the same currency pair over and over again. Combining two transactions reduces the transaction cost. So what is the meaning of what is the example of the swap? So if you think about a situation, you are the exporter in the US and you sell your goods in Germany so that you collect a bunch of the euro, right? People pay the euro in Germany. If you sell 100,000 euro today, in return for buying another 100,000 euro on September 1st, This is a simple example of the swap contract. Okay, you want to change that one back in the US dollar, but you still want to buy euros in the future. So that you just sign a contract with the bank that I'm using today's 100,000 euro in exchange for the futures 100,000 euro. So as you could see, those two give you what is the benefit using those two derivatives? You could avoid the volatility of the exchange rate, right? Because we never know what is the exchange rate on the September 1st. And if the exchange rate move from the opposite direction, and that will hurt my revenue, right? So the easiest thing for me is to sign a contract with the bank or with the people that's selling the foreign currency, using the information I have right now, using the information or using the expectation I have right now, so that I could bear no risk of the volatility of the exchange rate, and I can reduce the transaction cost. Okay. Two more derivatives introduced in the book. One is called future, and future is very similar to the forward contract. Take a look at the definition first. A future contract is a promise that two parties holding the contract will deliver currency to each other on the same future date. Okay, so you are buying the contract and to guarantee that they are going to sell you the currency, or you are going to sell them the currency in the future at a pre-specified exchange rate. So you could also specify the specific exchange rate. For example, a future means maybe like, for example, today is July July 22nd, right? And for example, if today's exchange rate for the US dollar to the euro is this, 1.05. So you sign a contract with the foreign currency seller that you would like to buy 100,000 euro on September 1st. For specific exchange rate. You don't care about what's the exact, what is the spot exchange rate on the September 1st. You pin it down today, like this. This will be like a simplified, a very, very simple version of the future contract. So sign a contract with the foreign currency seller that I'm going to buy the foreign currency, what amount, at which rate. That will be the future. Okay, so pretty similar to the forward, except for what? Except for I'm using today's spot exchange rate as my price. Now I determine by ourselves. We can negotiate back and forth. If you believe that the US dollar are going to appreciate, you probably will sell me like lower amount, right? Okay, so the benefit of this one is to hedge to avoid the risk as well. Yes, it's called an option. Okay, so option is buying the right to buy or buying the right to sell in the future. So they have like two specific terms. It's called put and call. So basically, put means what? Put there means the right to sell. Call means the right to buy. Take a look at the definition. Let's take a look at the definition together. So an option provides one party, the buyer, with the right to buy buy or to sell a currency in exchange for another at pre-specified exchange rate at a future date. The buyer is under no obligation to trade or will not exercise the option if the spot price on the expiration date turns out to be more favorable. Right? So you have the right to sell, you have the right to buy. It doesn't mean you have to really do so. So you see, so why sometimes options, the exchange rate contract with the option, it's always cost higher. It's because you have the choice. You could exercise your options or not. Okay, so for those four derivatives, the only one you need to really understand is the forward one, because we are going to use that one in the covered interest parity. Okay, and the books also give you an example of why some people could use the derivative, the foreign exchange derivative, as a tool of hedging and as a tool of speculation. You could go over it by yourself. So the risk will be the key point, right? Because we are not able to predict the future 100% correctly. So we need to pin down the price or pin down the value of the foreign exchange rate I would like to sell or buy today to get rid of the risk or volatility of the exchange rate. That's the basic idea. Okay, and two more. You want me to go over the example, or so I'm a little bit running behind my schedule. Shall we? Yeah, let's move on, because I think the CIP and the UIP is more important. Okay, if you read and you have questions, maybe we could come back. Could be helpful.
I just think if you think the CIP and the UIP is more important, we should continue because it's already 7:30 if you say you're behind.
Yeah, yeah, so yeah, if that's okay with everybody. Okay, so let's just conclude this part. Yep, yeah, let's just conclude this part. So the market for the foreign exchange. Okay, so who is the main traders in this market? One is the commercial banks, and one is the government. That's it. And government, they can use the tools to shut down the market. That's called capital control. They just don't allow people to buy the foreign currency or to sell the current foreign currency. That's it. So let's wrap up this part. Okay, so let's think about the arbitrage and the spot exchange rate. So if you think about what is the meaning of the arbitrage, arbitrage. So this term is frequently used in the finance literature. Well, to be straightforward, this one is to buy at low price and sell at high price, so that you could have the margin, right? So you can be profitable if you do the arbitrage. So the detailed definition is a trading strategy that exploits any profit opportunity arising from the price differences. But maybe let me put it down. Arbitrage, detailed definition. So trading strategy that exploit any profit opportunity arising from the differences of the price. Okay? So if the market have the opportunity for arbitraging, we say this market is not in the equilibrium. If arbitrage opportunity exists. Okay? So let's take a look at what is the idea of this one. So if you have $1 in New York and you want to switch it to the pounds, you have two ways, right? Multiple ways. First of all, you could just sell the dollars to pounds in New York so that the exchange rate happening in New York foreign exchange market for the pounds to dollar is like this, right? So you just need to pay this amount in exchange for $1 of the pound. And then you have another way to do so. You could transfer your dollar to London. And then use the exchange rate in London to switch your dollar to the pounds. Right? So due to the technology right now, this the path from A to C, C to D, and D to B could be done in seconds. Right? So if the exchange rate in New York $1 per pound is larger than the exchange rate in London, what happened? That means you could pay less in terms of the British pounds to exchange the same amount of the dollar in London, right? So people will flock to this market, flock in this market, so that this exchange rate will actually getting higher. And it's the same thing if the exchange rate in New York is smaller than the exchange rate in London. People will go to the market here and then switch their dollar to the pounds because they could pay less, right? So those two, the inequality here represents in equilibrium, not in equilibrium. So the arbitrage means what? Means if there's no arbitrage opportunity, means the spot rate between those two currency in two different markets are supposed to be the same. Okay? No arbitrary condition. Okay. So arbitrage with 3 currency. Okay. So now if I want to switch pounds by the dollars, right? And one way is to directly so you're in UK, US. One way is directly trade. Another way is to use a third party's country. For example, using Euro to trade. Right? So you could switch your pounds to Euro first, and then switch it to dollar. So arbitrage with 3 currency means what? Means this term and this path, the direct path and the indirect path, their exchange rate should be equal to each other. So that's this one. Direct exchange rate, and this one is using the different currency, right? You have an intermediate currency here. And then if you just flip the home country and foreign country for the second second exchange rate, this will equal to this, right? So this is referred to the cross rate. So if there's no arbitrage opportunity, the direct exchange rate should equal to the cross exchange rate or cross rate. You could switch the currency directly, or you can use another country's currency to do so. And if the market is efficient, if it's in the equilibrium, the market is in equilibrium, you're supposed to have no arbitrage condition. And that means this equality should hold. Okay? Take a look at this graph. That probably was easier. So $1 sell dollars for pounds, you get this amount of the pounds. If you sell to like people wants to the dollar directly. But you also could use another currency as an intermediate, right? So first you switch your dollar for euro. So you sell your dollar for amount of a euro by this exchange rate. Now you are keeping the euro, and you sell your euro for the pound. If this one is higher than this one, people will go use this way, right? So that will drive down the price so that those two will converge. If this one is higher than this one, people will go the indirect way to switch their currency, right? So that in a market equilibrium, those two supposed to be the same. Okay, and if you just manipulate the mathematical equation, this could be shown like this. Right? And what do we call this one? The cross exchange rate. Okay, so as I said, vehicle currency, it's the currency. It's not in the uh, each side of the transaction directly. You use it as a vehicle. You use it as an intermediation. So let's move on to the CIP. I think that's the more important thing. So this is called riskless arbitrage and covered interest parity, CIP. Okay. So in contrast to the exchange euro for dollar in 1 year time, carry an exchange rate for F. We're using F as a future exchange rate between dollar and euro. Right? So this means what? This means the forward exchange rate in a year, in 1 year. Okay, so let's go over the process together. If you invest $1 in the US bank, okay, that's using this graph. Okay, so what's the mechanism of the covered interest parity? If you have $1 today in the US, you could choose to save it in the US bank, right? So after a year, how much will you get? You will get 1 times 1 plus interest rate amount of the money, right? If you don't switch your currency, you just simply deposit in a US commercial bank. And this supposed to be the amount of the money that you should get after 1 year. But you could also deposit in a foreign banks as well. But what you need to do additionally, you need to change your US dollar to another foreign currency firstly, right? So that's exactly what you do here. So if you try to deposit $1 US dollar in Germany, say that Germany. So now, first of all, you need to switch your US dollar to the euro, right? So you sell your dollar in exchange for the euro, right? So this is the amount that you will get. And then when you deposit in a foreign bank, this is the interest rate that foreign bank, the eurozone banks give it to you. right? So this is the amount, how much of the euro that you will get. After 1 year. Remember, this is in euro term. Okay, originally it's dollar. Right, you sell it to the foreign buyers, right? So if you're using this one, that will more straightforward to you, but they are the same one, right? $1 times the exchange rate today, so that you get the amount of the euro, and then you deposit in the German bank, and you will get the interest rate that is here. But you want your money back to the US, right? You want your money back in the US in 1 year. So this will be the future exchange rate. So you want your euro to switch back to the US dollar under the future exchange rate. So if you're choosing this route, you deposit your money in a foreign bank, how much money you will get? 1 times 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 right? This is by the first step, you switch your dollar to the euro. Then you deposit after 1 year how much they paid you with the interest. You switch back to the US dollar, right? If those two are different, the revenue you get by depositing your $1 in a foreign bank, it's larger than you deposit $1 in a US bank. What will happen? People will get their money deposited in the European banks instead of using the US banks. So the US banks will have incentive to increase their interest rate so that it's supposed to be higher, because a lot of people wants to deposit in a European banks, the interest rate will be lower, right? So in the end, the equality should become equal sign. So that's the idea of CIP. So if you manipulate the mathematical equation, this will become F the ratio between the ratio between the future exchange rate and the spot exchange rate, it's equal to the ratio between home country and foreign country. Or using the representative that the books showed us. That's it. So CIP is this one. So what's the importance here? You connect the interest rate in two different countries. Also, you connect the future exchange rate and the spot exchange rate in one equation. Okay, so let's go back to the representation here, and then take a look of the definition. Okay, so that's the mechanism I just showed you. Riskless arbitrage. Right? If you invest $1 deposit, you put the $1 in a U.S. bank. The account will worth this after 1 year. The dollar value of the principal and the interest of the U.S. dollar bank deposit is called dollar return. This is the return you will get if you deposit your $1 in the U.S. If you invest in the Euro bank, first you need to convert the dollar into euro, right? So use the spot exchange rate. $1 buys this amount, of the euro, right? This amount of euro is actually represented by this as well. So now your asset become euro, right? So your asset right now, $1. This is your asset right now. So you deposit your euro, the amount of the euro in the European bank. This is what you get. This is what you get after 1 year. But you need to convert it back to the US dollar, right? But you don't know what's exactly the exchange rate at that time. So we use future exchange rate as a representation. So if you choose the second route, so you choose to deposit your $1 into foreign bank. This is exactly the return that you will get. So what we do by arbitrary condition, no arbitrary condition, right? So we make this one equal to this one, so that the financial market will be in equilibrium. So 1 plus you deposit $1 in the US, that's supposed to be you deposit $1 in the Euro bank, like this, right? So if you organize a little bit of the mathematic representation, that's what you get. Okay? So that's basically the idea of the CIP. I hope this is clear. Is it clear to everyone? So you basically just convert your currency twice, right? So if you take the second route from B, C, D, you just convert your currency 2 times. Once from the US to the euro, and the second time is from euro to US dollar. That's it. And the differences between the interest rate between the euro banks and the US banks will be shown here. Okay. Thank you, Boycott. concept is clear, but representation, okay, representation will take some time to accept. Yeah, so should I do it one more time? Maybe I use the whiteboard to do it one more time. That probably will help. Okay. 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 Yes, please. Okay. 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 So you have $1, right? So think about that. You have two choices. One is to deposit domestically, right? Deposit in the U.S., right? So you could go to Chase, BOA, any of the banks, right? And how much will you get after 1 year? Because the banks will pay you the interest, right? And this is your principal. This is your interest, right? So after 1 year, you supposed to get this, right? And this is the easy way. If you just deposit your asset in the U.S. bank, if you try to arbitrage, if you try to, like get more return on your deposit, you try to look for some of the banks overseas. So let's say you find a German bank in Europe. So first of all, what do you have to do? You have to sell your US dollar in exchange for the euro, right? So US dollar, how much you could get for the euro? Right? So this is the first step, right? So now instead you are holding the US dollar now after converted, now you are holding the euro, right? But now you put the euro in a German bank, right? So this is the amount of the euro you have. You send it to a German bank, and German bank supposed to give you the interest as well. So you have the principal, you have the interest, right? So after a year, you will get this amount of euro, right? So this is in terms of the euro. In terms of the euro, you will get this amount of the euro, right? But you are in America, you are in the US. What do you have to do? If you want to get your money back, you want to spend the euro in Washington D.C. or you want to spend the euro in New York, nobody will accept it, right? So last step is you have to convert it back to the US dollar, right? So you have to transfer your money from the euro back to the US and you have to convert it again. So you have to went through the exchange rate again. So we don't know at the time. We don't know at the time we go over this process. So we just give the future exchange rate for euro, the US dollar, like this. So this is the amount that you will get if you save $1 in European bank, in German bank. right? And simply just flip the representation of this one, then the whole mathematic equation will be identical to what we see in a book, right? So lastly, what is more important? We need to assume no arbitrage condition, right? Because if the market is efficient, like there's no money are going to let you to pick up, right? People will come before you, and then you will have no arbitrage opportunity. So the return you get in the U.S. market is supposed to equal to the return you get if you decide to convert it twice of your money. So this is the meaning of the covered interest parity. Why does it call a covered interest parity? Because we assume that the future exchange rate is something we know. But is this always the case? No. So one more thing it's important in the international finance is the expectation, right? So if this is CIP, what is the UIP? UIP stands for uncovered interest parity. UIP means uncovered interest parity. Means what? Instead of using the future exchange rate, here we switch to the expectation of the exchange rate. And everything to remain the same. The mechanism is the same. The only difference is the future and the expectation. And this one is guaranteed. We assume that we know. This one, you have to include some of the people's expectation. That's the CIP and UIP. If we take a look of the graph, let me just walk you through again for the uncovered interest parity. Uncovered interest parity. That's it. Right? So if you compare this UIP and what CIP, CIP is exactly the same. This left-hand side is the return you will get if you deposit $1 in a US bank. The only difference is here. Is the future exchange rate, right? Mechanism is the same. You start at a point A, you have $1 today. You have two choices. One, deposit domestically and get the domestic interest rate. Or you could choose another route to convert your currency first, to sell your dollar for euro today, so that you're using the exchange rate, the spot exchange rate. So you get this amount of the euro today. So you save it, or people actually save it for you in the bank overseas. And after a year, you will get the principal, so it's 1, and the interest rate overseas. Right? So now, what is the total amount of your asset? The total amount of your asset is supposed to be this, right? This times this. Okay. Now you are in a D step, but you want to get your money back in the US, right? So you need to convert it one more time. So this is in terms of euro, right? So 1 over exchange rate between US dollar and this. One more time, you have to sell your euros in return for the US dollar. But this time, this it's not decided. We assume we don't know. It's based on our expectation. Once again, no arbitrary condition charge. Give us what? 1 plus the domestic return. It's equal to the ratio between the expected exchange rate and the spot exchange rate times the foreign interest rate. 1 plus foreign interest rate. Okay, and this is the idea of UIP. Okay, let's go over the text together. So this is called risky arbitrage. Right? Once again, what's the meaning of arbitrage? Arbitrage means the trade strategy that can exploit the profit opportunity, which is arising from the price differences. Right? So arbitrage opportunity means the opportunity of buying at a low price and selling at a high price. Basically, you have the chance to cash in the market, right? And in equilibrium, we believe that that's not the case because the market works well. In equilibrium, there's no arbitrage opportunity on the market. If someone see the arbitrage opportunity, they will grab it, and you won't see any more because the market is efficient. Okay, so that we call the uncovered interest parity. Okay, in this case, trader face exchange rate risk and must make a forecast. Okay, so that's how expectation come into play here. Right? We refer to forecast as this, which we call expected exchange rate. Okay, based on the forecast, you expect this euro you will have in 1 year's time will be worth this when converted to dollar. This is the expected dollar return on euro deposit. So if you apply the no arbitrage condition, when you deposit in the US, deposit in Europe, this gives you uncovered interest parity. I hope this is clear. It probably needs some time to go over, to think about a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let me just went through. There's no break today, and I will let you guys go by 8:30. Okay. I think one of the example previously is interesting. Let me see. So this tells you like the spread between a. This is the implied by deviation of the CIP. Okay, so this is supposed to be the spread. Yeah, so the spread. So it's like the German deposit, the return on the German deposit, and minus the return on the UK deposit. So you could treat this one like what? This is larger than UK. Germany is larger than UK. So as you see, before they abolish their capital control tool, because people cannot move their deposit across the border. So uh, for the UK people, they could only deposit their saving in the uh, British banks at that time, and so as in the Germany, the German can only deposit their money in a German bank. Okay, but after they get rid of the capital control, right? Means right now people could move their saving across the borders. You see, so the spread between those two interest rate decrease, so they converge with each other, right? Because the market get integrated, right? People, it's smart. People, if they see the arbitrage opportunity, they will go, right? For example, in this case, the British people probably will convert their pounds to German mark at a time to save their saving, to put their money in the German banks so that they could enjoy a higher amount of the interest rate. And then if they convert it back to the pounds, they're supposed to get a higher return in compare with just save that deposit their money in a English bank at a time. Because because the capital control tool was imposed by the government at that time. This kind of the arbitrage condition does not exist, right? After they abolish, they welcome the foreign deposit. They welcome they can move the money out and in across their borders. The the spread become very small, right? So this is no arbitrage, right? People want to arbitrage, but they cannot because government use the capital control tool. They simply just cannot buy the foreign currency or sell the foreign currency freely at that time. Now they can. After after this deregulated of the capital control, arbitrage is available, so the market become more efficient. Market become more efficient. The no arbitrage condition holds here. Okay, so this is one of the application of the CIP. And then if we take a look of the comparison between a CIP and UIP, so how do we get this equation? So the expected exchange rate, right? So this is expected exchange rate. It's equal to the future exchange rate. Forward exchange rate. Doesn't matter. Forward exchange rate should be the same thing. How do we get this one? UIP is equal to that's UIP, right? CIP is equal to 1 plus forward exchange rate. right? So you simply just divided those two, right? So you divided those two. Divide UIP by CIP. Divide it. So what would you get? On the left-hand side, it's the same thing, right? So 1 plus I dollar interest rate in the US, 1 plus the interest rate in the US, left-hand side becomes 1. The right-hand side, this is the same thing, right? So they cancel out. Numerator still be the numerator. The numerator of the denominator become denominator, right? If you manipulate a little bit, organize a little bit, you get this. So we get this condition. That's echo to the second bullet point. Although the expected future spot rate and the forward rate are using two different forms of the arbitrage, risky and riskiness. In equilibrium, they should be exactly the same, right? If people's expectation is 100% accurate, the forward exchange rate is supposed to equal to the expected exchange rate. Right? If both CIP and UIP holds, the forward must equal to the expect future spot rate. Okay. Lastly, risk-neutral investor have no reason to prefer to avoid risk by using forward rate versus embracing risk by awaiting the future spot rate. So basically, those two supposed to be the same for the risk-neutral investors. Okay. And another things is called the premium on the. So just define another term. This one, the ratio between those two, right? That this is the forward exchange rate. This is spot exchange rate minus 1. It's called a forward premium, right? So if forward is larger than the spot, the ratio between them will larger than 1. So the premium will larger than 0, right? And another term, if you just switch the forward exchange rate by the expected exchange rate, this term we call expected rate of depreciation. So basically this, we are interested in the ratio between expected and not expected spot exchange rate. Right? If you expected the spot exchange rate is larger than the spot exchange rate, what does it mean? It means you expect the US dollar going to depreciate. Right? So that's the reason why if this one is larger than 0, this is called the rate of the depreciation. Okay? Just two another terms. And one more thing. If the CIP and UIP holds the expected rate of the depreciation, so it's this one. And forward premium, it's this one. They should be perfectly correlated with each other. Okay? So the black line here, it's the perfectly correlated. So it's a 45-degree line. Means the correlation between this term and this term are equal to 1. And the data show us what? The regression line, it's very close to the 45-degree line. So this graph actually shows us this is the evidence that UIP and CIP holds. Okay? And the last part, approximation. Okay. So how do we get this one? So you see what's the difference between the original UIP to this one? I think you could call it a relative CIP, a relative UIP. So here, we take the change of the expectation into account, right? So as you could imagine, people's expectation of the spot exchange rate will change. And that will because due to a lot of factors, because some of the countries' economic performance become worse. So you will adjust your expectation of the exchange rate, of course. So how do we get this one? So originally CIP is equal to this. Sorry, UIP. Right, the ratio between the expected spot exchange rate to the expected spot exchange rate and the spot exchange rate, the ratio between them, and times the foreign interest rate, and this is the domestic interest rate. And then the second step is just manipulate a little bit of the equation. You get 1 plus let me pull out the whiteboard. Okay, so approximation of UIP. Okay, so original UIP is 1 plus I. Right? So what do I have to do? In order to put the change rate here, the change of the expectation, can I do this? Are those two equations identical to each other? Yes or no? Yes or no? Hello? No? Why?
It looks like let's see here. So the
Last term? Last term is weird. Okay,
I'm sorry?
if I write the last term is strange.
Yeah.
If I write like this,
E-
do it still look strange to you? Can I just
Well, you can just get rid of the. Yep. Yeah. You can
right?
just. Yep.
So
Exactly.
so actually this equation are identical to this equation.
Well, you had to do that first for me to see that. No, I get it.
Okay, yeah. But the goal is I just trying to, compose this term out, right? Because this is my goal in an approximation. I want a delta to show up. So 1 plus I equal to 1 plus I sub euro equal to 1 plus the change of the expectation of the exchange rate, right? Okay. And the last things to do is to expand it by using the law of the distribution. Okay? From this one to this one. Is it okay? Law of the distribution. Okay? So thank you. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you for the yep, good, thank you. So if think about that, we think about that. The interest rate is usually a very small number, right? Like this is supposed to be like 3% or something. Like very, very close to zero, right? And the interest rate in euro supposed to be very small as well. 2 or 1. And the expectation, if we assume that the expectation, so this term, if we assume this term is very small as well, what about this term? It's a product of a very small term times a very small term. So we could actually get rid of this product because it's close to zero. So that's why this is called the approximation of the UIP, because right now, if the interest rate and the adjustment of the expectation, it's very small, I will have this equation hold. So this term are going to approximate this term. And what we see from the left-hand side, right-hand side, we see this can cancel out, right? So the interest rate differences between the foreign country and the domestic country is actually the main cause of the adjustment of the expectation on the exchange rate. This is the last slide on chapter 13. And we will encounter this in chapter 14 in PPP again. Well, this is actually second to the last slide. Yeah, but the last one you could just read by yourself. Okay? I hope this is clear. I hope this is clear to you. So, what do we learn? What do we learn today? What do we learn today? First of all, not too bad. Okay. Good. Can I erase it? Let me just briefly wrap up. I don't want to get into chapter 14 today. Okay. Let me briefly wrap up because I know it's a little bit overwhelming. But CIP and UIP and PPP is just the core, the pillar of the international finance. Once you get past this, this is supposed to be very, very straightforward. Well, I don't want to use straightforward, but you should have a better idea of what's the big picture of the international financial market. Okay, what do we learn today? Let's recap a little bit. What do we learn? First of all, we review the exchange rate, right? And then we go over how do we represent the exchange rate, right? You could either you have to set up the home country and foreign country first, right? So this is how much you have to pay for the how much domestic dollar you have to pay for exchange $1 of the foreign currency, right? And if you switch it, this one is going to be the reciprocal, this one, right? The euro dollar, this one. And then we went over the derivative, right, of the financial tools. Also, the fixed and float regime of the exchange rate market in different countries, right? And all of this, we are trying to pave the path for what? For two important conditions that we cover. It's UIP and CIP, right? And UIP and CIP, what are their mechanisms? You have two choices. Either you choose to deposit in a domestic bank or you deposit in an overseas bank. But in order to deposit in an overseas bank, you need to convert your currency twice. You have to convert your US dollar to the euro first, and then convert it back once you want to claim your return. And the only difference between the CIP and UIP is what? Is CIP, we believe that the future exchange rate is something we already know today. Right? So the banks will estimate for you. They will estimate all the risk for you. So they will have the future exchange rate. That's the long-term concept. While in the UIP, it's a risky arbitrage behavior, right? Everything we have to rely on what? Rely on the expectation of the investors' expectation on the exchange rate. Okay? And lastly, we talk about the approximation of the UIP, and the approximation of the UIP tell us what? The difference is the spread between the domestic and the foreign interest rate. Actually, it's the main cause of the adjustment of the expectation on the exchange rate. Okay? I hope all the stuff is clear right now as this is our second lecture in the international finance, international macroeconomics. I will try to finish chapter 14 on next Monday, but if you have a time over this weekend, please read through the chapter 14 in advance. And I also have one of the additional reading assigned on the blackboard, which will be one of the homework questions. It's called the puzzle of the purchase power parity. And we will discuss that later on. Okay? So that will be all for today. I think since we didn't have the break, so you should be very tired right now, and then it's good timing to start your policy brief and then do some of the homework and additional reading over this weekend. I will hold my office hour tomorrow. You are welcome to stop by, and I will send out the multiple choice answer key as soon as possible, and I will try to grade your midterm as soon as possible. So thank you for your patience. That's it. Have a good night. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Wenyi. Thank you, Ray. I know you guys are in a very early morning. Thank you for the participation. Mel, Ray, and Dylan, you have any questions? Hello? Do you have any questions? Let me know. Okay, cool. Dylan and Ray, do you have any questions? Okay, if not, I will gonna leave the classroom. Okay, so I will still hold my office hour tomorrow. If you need any help, let me know. Dylan, are you still here? Dylan? Ray, are you still here?